Yeah, 75% of my customers are Hispanic. I can tell you, Gary, that what I'm hearing, from the verdict and kind of the everything that's being spoken about, like this is absolutely, the right direction for the consumer. And, I sit back and I just look at the journey that many of my first time home buyers have to take. And, I've been in this industry for 19 years, and I want to say that the journey for first time home buyers is always a complicated, complex journey. But right now in this market, with the increase in rate, of course, affordability, and there is no homes in the market, a buyer now needs so much more than just the typical than the typical, education resources that we were providing all these years. They need somebody on their corner, really, from the moment they begin to think about becoming a homeowner. They're already needing education and resources to learn about building their credit. How can they possibly save when they don't have a lot of extra income in order to kind of save for that down payment? Maybe what organizations can help them come in with their down payment? Oh, and now what banks are actually providing products or programs that they would benefit from? So once they get through all of those obstacles and hurdles, now they have to enter a market where they know that they're going to be competing with, maybe move up buyers or investors or institutional buyers, cash buyers, of course, in the market. And so they're at a disadvantage all the way through. And many of us can agree that in our market, it's been a seller's market for quite a bit of time. So you tell a first-time home buyer, this is what you have to do. We're in this together for the next couple of years, and they sign up for it, and they're willing to do it because they obviously want to become homeowners. It is obviously the dream for everyone. Now, if we turn around and tell them, now you have to come in with an additional cost and an additional fee, whatever that fee may be, but it is definitely substantial. The only thing they're going to do is delay their process to becoming homeowners or just completely give up on that dream. And we understand that, families that stay renters, they absolutely, that the path of being a renter never leads to true wealth. And so I can tell you that the education that we provide, and many of the members in the NAREP organization, because we are passionate about this, it's to get them to that finish line, and we're willing to stay with them all the way through. Now, I understand that, they're saying, well, maybe it wasn't addressed, or maybe this wasn't explained. I think it's very clear if you really look at the journey of a first-time home buyer, whether it's Hispanic, veteran, our African-American first-time home buyers, just really the first-time home buyer, you will clearly see that it is a journey full of obstacles, and you absolutely need a lot of resources and support from a trusted advisor, usually that buyer's agent. So it's incredible to be in this place right now where we're addressing sellers, in this verdict, and how they've been affected, of course, and not really take into consideration the voices of all of our first-time home buyers, which absolutely need advocacy. So I can tell you, in most recent, I have a family, the Gutierrez family. They have 4 kids. The father's the one that's working. The mother's a stay-home mom. They've been living as renters for 15 years. Every time they've come, to see us, hey, you're almost there. You're almost there. You're only missing this. This is where we need to be. The market got harder now. All of a sudden, you need to kind of go back and let's get you a little bit more savings. And guess what would be the conversation now that I have to have with them again? Now we have to turn this into a couple more years of you saving for this commission, or let's figure out a way how we can enter the market and find a way to negotiate with it, which at the end of the day is going to come out of that buyer's pocket, whether it's if we increase the purchase price. So to me, it's very clear that if we're looking at the consumer, we truly need to look at all sides in this issue. And so I think that, Gary, you can probably, lead with any other questions you may have for me. But this is something that that I'm very passionate about, not only because it's my business, but because I see the stories. I'm front facing every single day, and I see all of the struggles and everything those first-time homebuyers are willing to do, and putting this new burden on them in this type of market will only take us back from the progress that we've seen in the recent years for our minority home buyers. It will take us back. So, yeah.
No, I think you made a very strong case for buyer representation and the value that you bring to a transaction, especially for first-time home buyers. But I think it applies to all home buyers, frankly. You didn't even talk about, the guidance that you provide them with respect to the actual property itself, and what to ask for, and property inspections, and how to read one, and so forth, so they know what they're actually getting into. The process is very complex and very intimidating for just about anybody, and I do fear that if the outcome that we fear the most, which is cooperation, is no longer something that is permitted, that people are going to try to go at it on their own. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get into deals that they regret, or they're going to enter into transactions, or maybe even get financing instruments that they don't fully understand. So the role of a realtor is invaluable in that regard. And so anybody who puts out the notion that somehow buyers agents are obsolete or no longer necessary because everybody can go on the internet is just either kidding themselves, or just trying to pull over the wool over everybody else's eyes. Katie, one of the things that you pointed out from the very beginning is that you weren't even really able to make the argument that buyers agents provide this value, that they didn't have to show that there were actual damages. They had to just show that there was this collusion of sorts that was going on. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, we did show that the great value that buyer agents, and we showed how the seller benefited from the work and services of buyer agents. And to Nora's very good points, we definitely highlighted how this world that the plaintiff is constructing would harm first-time home buyers. There are studies that show that, and our expert witness economists explain that very well as well. But the jury couldn't consider it. So while we offered that to them, the jury verdict form had two substantive questions before they asked for how much. And it was there an agreement to follow the rule? And did that lead to commissions being fixed? They were not allowed to consider what the rule, the benefits and the outcomes of the rule, other than if there was an agreement and if the jury thought that there was fixed or inflated prices. And that was a misstep. That was an error of law that we will challenge on appeal.
I didn't even know that was permitted. I always thought if I sued somebody, I had to show damages. I couldn't just sue them just out of, for no reason whatsoever. I mean, that's astonishing to me.
Yeah, it's everything about that trial is astonishing.
So Katie, let's talk about moving forward, basically. So obviously there's going to be an appeal that you are going to lead moving forward. What is the basis of that appeal? What outcome are you looking for? And then let's talk about things, as we wrap up at a more sort of global sense. What strategically should we be thinking about? What should NAHREP be putting out there? What role can we have in ensuring that we end up with an outcome that is actually in the best interests, not only of our members, but even more importantly, of the marketplace and consumers as well?
Perfect. Yes, great. Thank you. So in terms of next steps, there are many lanes we're following here. And in the legal lane, let's talk about appeal. In order to get to the point where we appeal to the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, which will be a panel of judges who are very versed in antitrust law, not a jury panel, we have to first ask the district court to undo what the jury did. We have to file motions that say you have to overturn the jury's verdict because it was wrong as a matter of law, and ask for a new trial. Those are motions that have to take place, and then the judge will have to rule. And if he does not rule in our favor, then we get to go to the Eighth Circuit. And then we get to make the case about the antitrust analysis being wrong. Then we get to make the case about several appealable issues about indirect purchaser and how the outcome and the damages are not supported, and hopefully get that ultimately overturned overturned. In the meantime, we are also navigating the case in Illinois that will be filing a motion for summary judgment in there soon. That could proceed to trial in 2024. And now there's other cases being filed. The new cases against NAR, one of them named 7 new corporate defendants. So still, I just want to make the point that in terms of ones that NAR is involved in, all the corporate defendants are co-defendants are corporations that don't provide real estate services themselves. These are franchisors that license their brands to real estate service providers. And so we are strategizing ways to contain the spread of copycat lawsuits, because quite frankly, that's what happens when one class action gets a verdict, others swarm. And so we'll manage that, and we'll figure that out while we appeal to get the right outcome in this Burnett case. But what are we going to do in the meantime? And that's another lane. And that's really the lane. Well, so in that lane, Gary, I'll be coming to you, seeing if there's any kind of legal support you would want to help articulate the points that are most important to your members in an amicus brief or in some other way through that legal process. And then this other lane that you and your members and our members should be spending most of their focus and time on is, how do we look at this as an opportunity to rise above, an opportunity to differentiate ourselves from our competitors, and an opportunity to educate the public and to get rid of this misinformation or to counterattack the misinformation. I mean, the media reaction to, and Nora mentioned this, the media reaction to the verdict is also astounding. It's frightening because of what you said in some of your headlines that you saw, that this is good for home buyers. It's absolutely not. And so we need more voices. And if you go to competition.realtor, you'll see a ton of messaging that we've created and that we've used in op-eds and commercials and every kind of social media campaigns, trying to get the message out, encouraging locals and states to do the same thing, get the messages out to your audiences, because it really is a battle for the attention and the persuasion of the consumers. And so the more people who are giving them the facts, and the more people who are giving them the truth about these potential outcomes, the better. And so I feel like that's another avenue that you guys could really take advantage of. And I saw in the Q&A some really good ideas about Spanish language ads and Spanish speaking audiences that, I think that's a great idea. If you ever wanted us to also amplify your messages there, that's we would love to do that.
We would love to chat with you about that for sure, because I think that can be very helpful.
Yeah.
So let me just, I'm going to just talk about a couple of things that you may not want to talk about, but okay. I just want to put out there. So I've heard that the Justice Department is actually looking at this case. Who knows? They do things under a black box, so to speak. But have you sort of gauged the likelihood that the Justice Department is going to weigh in on this and determine that the idea of cooperation is going to be deemed illegal? Is that a likelihood? Is that a very low likelihood? Why is the Justice Department even looking at this?
So the Justice Department is it's talking about a black box. So I just want to mention, if you drive offers of compensation off the MLS, where are they going to be made? They're going to be made in the shadows. How does that help fair housing? How does that help discrimination or access or opportunity, transparency or accuracy? That destroys all of the tenets of the MLS, which regulators used to acknowledge was a benefit. So did consumer advocates. So it transparency.
Is
Yes, transparency. That would be destroyed if you can't use the multiple listing service to make these offers. But in terms of the DOJ, what do we know? Of course, there's lots of speculation. I'm sure that the DOJ and the plaintiffs' attorneys all know each other and have certainly communicated about what's transpiring in our case. But we also are in a lawsuit against the DOJ. And if you recall, they did file a CID, a civil investigative demand against NAR NAR in 2019. We complied with it. We provided the documents and information that they requested, and we negotiated a settlement, and we negotiated an outcome, which changed some of our rules, but did not change the participation rule or the clear cooperation policy, which are at issue in the trial. And we adhered to it. Long story short, they tried to back out, right? Do you remember this? In 2020, we announced this settlement. 2021, they said it's a new administration and we don't like what the old administration did. We are going to unilaterally just renege on the deal. That wasn't fair. That's not right. The law does not allow that. So we, when we received the new investigative demand, we sued the DOJ asking for them to quash that new investigation. Well, earlier this year, the district court said, yes, we agree. And he summed it up at the end by saying that the government, like any other party, must abide by the terms of its settlement agreements. And so where we are there is that DOJ was trying to reinvestigate us. They can't because we reached a resolution, but they're appealing that decision. So on December, this is a very busy year. On December 1st, we'll be in the hearing, the appeals hearing, where we'll be arguing that case before the federal circuit in DC. So what are they doing in terms with us? We're in litigation with them. In terms of what they may be contributing or talking to the plaintiff's attorneys, I'm not sure, but we certainly would anticipate that they've made their opinions known.
Yeah, and so let me just kind of piggyback on that a little bit. The Justice Department does not make law; they only enforce law.
That's supposed to be the case, yes.
Exactly, right. I'm just putting that out there. That is the case. They may have a little mission creep happening now and then, but their job is not to create law, but to enforce law. Now they have a lot of what you call prosecutorial judgment that they can utilize, but that's a fact. Which also means if they overstep their bounds, then it may require legislation to address at some point. Now I'm getting way ahead of things, I know, and I realize that, but I'm asking those questions, or I'm putting it out there because I think that one of the things that NARUP is going to start doing is educating our elected officials, our members of Congress, members of the Hispanic Caucus in particular, about this issue so that they understand it before they start making their assumptions and reading headlines and listening to people like Steve Robeck. They start to recognize that this is a lot more complex than people realize, and there's going to be an outcome that at the end of the day is going to provide very unintended consequences if we're not careful. So I do think it's important for us to have those conversations with elected officials and maybe some of the agencies, because I do think, to your point, the public sentiment around this issue is going to matter a great deal at some point, if not sooner, certainly later as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for having that idea and strategy. Let us know how we can support your efforts because it's absolutely necessary and a great idea. So thank you.
Yeah, we're going to do that for sure. So we're going to wrap up now, Katie. I think this has been a very helpful and educational conversation. I don't know if you've noticed, but we had over 600 people register for this live. Most of them are parts of our chapter boards and leadership. There are literally hundreds of questions that have been submitted. We're going to filter through some of those, and I may send some of them your way. Hopefully you can provide us with some feedback so that we can share that with our membership as well. So this process is just starting. I'm looking forward to working very closely with you on this moving forward, because I do think it actually disproportionately affects our members and by extension, their customers. Nora, I'll let you kind of give us the last words here. And maybe it's positive or maybe it's a warning, but let's let you kind of wrap things up.
Thank you, Gary. Well, we certainly appreciate the time, and you know, I'm here, of course, speaking on behalf of our members, because like I mentioned, many have the passion to really help our communities become homeowners, because we understand that that is the way that they have a shot at building wealth for themselves, for their family. So this is a big deal for us, but most importantly, we're here advocating for our customers, right? The consumer, and I think Gary said it, it's really not just a Hispanic, Latino, or minority thing. It is really first-time home buyers. So I want to say here today that we are completely committed to making sure that we are the voice for them as clearly this is not something their opinion and their 2 cents on the matter hasn't really been expressed, and I don't think media is really picking that up anywhere. So we intend to do that, and thank you so much, everyone that joined us, all of our members. We look forward to continuing to keep you guys on top of everything that's happening, and please stay on top of our Sundays, Gary's blogs on Sundays, because those are going to be getting better and better and probably helping you understand exactly where we're going. So thank you, everyone here that joined us today. Thank you very much to all the team at NAR. Thank you, Gary. Have a wonderful day.
Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you very much. Yes.